Good morning and or afternoon, everyone. My name is Josiah Gibbs, and I'm a student here at Lincoln University. Today, I'm honored to share research I co-authored with my supervising professor, Dr. Mehran Asadi. Our paper, Navigating the Digital Front Stage, Self-Awareness, and Psychological Defenses Among Generation Z, has recently been approved for publication, and I'm excited to walk you through our key findings today. At its core, this research asks a question that is deeply relevant to all of us. What happens to our psychological defenses when we live so much of our lives online? Okay, so let's set the stage. Generation Z, those born roughly from the late 1990s through the early 2010s, are the first truly digital native generation. They have grown up with smartphones, social media, algorithms, platforms engineered to maximize engagement and public visibility. A 2023 Pew Research Center survey found 93% of U.S. teens ages 13 to 17 use YouTube. TikTok is used by 73%, Snapchat 60, Instagram 59. These aren't just entertainment platforms. They are social stages where Gen Z performs identity, compares themselves to peers, and manages how they are seen by the world. This brings us to our essential question. How do digital environments shape the relationship between psychological defense mechanisms and self awareness? And are the defenses young people employ online actually helping them or harming them? Our preliminary findings point to three core conclusions. First, that digital environments amplify impression management and reinforce maladaptive defenses like denial, projection, and rationalization. Second, that low self awareness is a key driver of more harmful defensive patterns. And third, that interventions like mindfulness show meaningful benefits in reducing these effects. So, this diagram is the architectural blueprint of our entire research. Let me walk you through it. At the top is the digital platform ecology: TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, where continuous visibility and engagement metrics create distinctive social environment. This ecology produces two forces. First, what Goffman called the front stage, an arena of impression management and curated identity. Second, digital pressures, social comparison, public evaluation through likes and comments, and algorithmic amplification of content. These pressures interact with two key psychological variables: self awareness, compromising self monitoring, internal dialogue, and reflected appraisals, and defense mechanisms, which range from mature strategies like sublimation all the way down to neurotic and immature defenses like denial and rationalization. Self awareness regulates defensive style. High self awareness leads to more mature, adaptive defenses. Low self awareness pushes individuals toward immature or neurotic ones. And those choices determine psychosocial outcomes like emotional regulation, mental well being, interpersonal functioning, and identity coherence. At the bottom, we propose interventions: mindfulness, emotional intelligence training, and cell programs to shift individuals towards greater self awareness and defensive maturity. Oh, got some more to say about this one. So, the hierarchical model. Now, let's go deeper into the theory, the concept of psychological defense mechanisms, originated with Sigmund Freud, who proposed that the mind uses unconscious strategies to protect itself from anxiety. His daughter, Anna Freud, system, systematized these into her landmark text, The Ego and the Mechanisms of Defense. Together, they developed a hierarchical model, a structure of the most to the least adaptive. Mature defenses, defenses like sublimation, humor, and suppression allow conflict to be managed without distorting reality. These are the psychologically healthiest. Neurotic defenses like repression, displacement, and intellectualization reduce anxiety but may create internal tension or interpersonal friction. Immature defenses like denial, projection, and regression distort reality and often produce socially problematic behavior. Psychotic defenses, the most extreme, severely distort perception and are associated with serious psychopathology. Okay. This hierarchy is not fixed. Defenses evolve with age and development. In early childhood, denial dominates because children lack the cognitive tools to process complexity by adolescence. More sophisticated defenses like projection and identification emerge, reflecting gains in abstract thinking and social understanding. Okay. Rationalization, displacement, denial. Let me make these defenses concrete and relatable. Rationalization is offering a logical, socially acceptable explanation for behavior driven by unconscious motives. Think of someone who posts a harsh comment and tells themselves they were just being honest, when in reality, they were venting anxiety or insecurity. Displacement is redirecting an emotion from a threatening target to a safer one. A person who feels powerless after a difficult experience might release that frustration aggressively in an online comment section at a stranger who had nothing to do with the original situation. Denial is refusing to acknowledge a distressing reality. A user who receives critical feedback might simply continue posting the same content as if the feedback never existed. Keep in mind, these are not character flaws. They are normal psychological processes. But the architecture of social media, public metrics, algorithmic amplification, constant comparison, supercharges them in a way that can seriously harm mental health. So we found three core components. The second major construct in our model is self-awareness, and it is more complex than simply knowing yourself. We conceptualize self-awareness across three dimensions. Okay. Self-focused attention, which is the capacity to direct attention inward and notice your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in real time. Second, self-evaluation, the process of comparing your behavior against personal or social standards, recognizing where you succeed or where you fall short. Self-knowledge, the deeper accumulated understanding of your enduring patterns, motivations, and characteristics. Now, together, these allow individuals to regulate behavior, make them make more informed decisions, and grow. And for our research, they determine whether someone can recognize and redirect maladaptive defense behavior when it surfaces online. So, self-reflection versus maladaptive rumination. This is a critical distinction that we want to make. Um, I want to pause on a distinction that is essential for understanding Gen Z mental health in digital environments. The difference between self-reflection and maladaptive self-rumination both involve looking inward, but they lead to very different places. Self-reflection is purposeful and constructive. It is an active solution-oriented process of examining your thoughts and experiences to gain insight and guide growth. Research constantly links it with improved emotional regulation, better decision making, and enhanced self-awareness. Maladaptive self-rumination, by contrast, is passive and repetitive. It means dwelling on negative thoughts, perceived failures, and distressing experiences without reaching any productive resolution. This pattern is strongly associated with anxiety, depression, and impaired coping. On social media, where negative feedback, unflattering comparisons, public missteps are highly visible and permanent, it is very easy for healthy self-reflection to tip into harmful rumination. Our model proposes that self-awareness is the variable that determines which direction that tipping goes. So, Goffman's dramaturgical framework. To understand how digital spaces shape behavior, we draw on sociologist Irving Goffman's dramaturgical framework, the idea that social life is fundamentally a performance. Goffman proposed that individuals present different versions of themselves depending on context. There is a front stage where we perform for an audience and a backstage where we can relax and be unguarded. Social media platforms are the front stages. They are open, public arenas where users consciously design their profiles, posts, and interactions to project desired identities, signal values, status, and conform to social norms. Unlike private life, these digital front stages are subject to constant scrutiny. Every post can be liked, commented on, shared, or ignored. Every metric is visible. This sustained evaluation pressure is exactly what triggers defensive functioning, because the ego is perpetually at risk of public exposure and rejection. Someone might rationalize a hostile comment as humor when challenged. They might deny feedback that threatens their online persona. They might project their own insecurities onto others in comment threads. These are not random behaviors, they are predictable psychological responses to front stage pressure. So, this brings us to one of our most significant theoretical contributions. Self awareness does not just describe how well someone knows themselves, it actively moderates how defense mechanisms function in digital spaces. Individuals with high self awareness can recognize when a defense has been activated. They pause, evaluate whether their response is appropriate, and adjust, resulting in more authentic communication and fewer interpersonal conflicts. Individuals with low self awareness have no idea their defenses are running. They may not recognize they are projecting insecurity or that rationalization is protecting them from an uncomfortable truth. The outcomes can include identity distortion, online stress, and escalating conflict. Self awareness, in short, is the psychological thermostat of the digital front stage. It regulates whether our defenses serve us or ultimately undermine us. So, what can be done? Our research proposes three evidence based categories of intervention to build self awareness and reduce reliance on maladaptive defenses. Mindfulness based programs promote present moment, non judgmental awareness in digital environments. Mindfulness helps users recognize when a defensive mechanism is being triggered, creating a pause between stimulus and reaction. Research shows it strengthens all three pillars of self awareness: self focused attention, self evaluation, and self knowledge. Emotional intelligence training focuses on accurately perceiving and understanding and regulating emotions. When individuals can clearly identify what they are feeling and why, they are far less likely to unknowingly rely on maladaptive defenses like projection or rationalization. L training amplifies the moderating function of self awareness in digital contexts. Social emotional learning, SEL, is a structured framework built around five competencies: self awareness, self management, self social awareness, and relationship skills, and responsible decision making. SEL extends beyond classrooms into digital and workplace settings, equipping individuals to regulate emotions, reduce harmful defensive reactions, and present themselves more adaptively across contexts and settings. Critically, all three must be implemented in culturally sensitive, developmentally appropriate, and socioeconomically accessible ways to reach the full range of Gen Z. Let me walk you through the proposed research design, which tests three specific measurable hypotheses using mixed methods framework. So, hypothesis one: identify curation intensity, measured through platforms metadata like post frequency, profile edits, and profile management activity. predicts increased use of neurotic or immature defenses. This relationship is mediated by low self awareness and moderated by mindfulness. Put simply, the more intensely somebody curates their digital identity, the more likely they are to rely on unhealthy defenses, unless mindfulness buffers that effect. Hypothesis 2. Self rumination mediates the relationship between social comparison exposure and the use of projection or rationalization. Social comparison activates self rumination, which in turn drives specific defensive behaviors. So, this is the last one. Social emotional learning interventions with an emotional intelligence emphasis reduce defensive narratives following negative feedback compared to control groups. To operationalize defensive functioning, we use the defensive mechanism rating scale Q sort, the DMRSQ, a validated, computerized, observer-rated tool that identifies and quantifies 30 distinct defensive mechanisms from diary entries and narrative texts. This is complemented by experience sampling methodology, which captures real-time emotional and cognitive responses throughout the day, and by platform metadata for behavioral data. This diagram visualizes how our three hypotheses connect to a unified model. In the H1 block, identity curation intensity drawn from platform metadata predicts immature defenses as measured by the DMRSQ. Mindfulness, measured through experience sampling, moderates that relationship. In the H2 block, the social comparison leads to self-rumination, measured by the rumination reflection questionnaire, which in turn predicts projection and rationalization. This is a mediation model. This is a mediation model. The effect of social comparison on defense behavior runs through the pathway of rumination. In the H3 block, a negative feedback episodes activates self-rumination and produces defensive narratives in coded text. The cell intervention is hypothesized to interrupt this pathway and reduce its magnitude. The theoretical anchors grounding this model are well established. Fessinger's social comparisons theory from 1954, the rumination reflection questionnaire developed by Trapnell and Campbell, DMRSQ methodology by D, Giuseppe, and Perry, and research linking mindfulness as explicit emotion regulation to defenses as implicit regulation. To conclude, Generation Z's deep immersion in digital life creates a genuine psychological paradox. On one side, constant performance pressure, social comparisons, and public evaluation can trigger maladaptive defensive reactions, that distort identity and erode mental health, particularly when self-awareness is low. On the other side, these same digital spaces offer real opportunities for a community connection, identity exploration, and growth. When individuals approach them with reflective practices and psychological tools that support mature coping. The answer is not to demonize platforms or to tell young people to simply disconnect. The answer is to equip them with the capacity for self-awareness through mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and social emotional learning so they can engage with these spaces more adaptively with greater authenticity. Our research calls for ethically grounded, culturally sensitive assessment tools, and for platform designers and educators and clinicians to collaborate in creating digital environments that encourage mature, equitable, psychologically healthy self-expression. Ultimately, when young people understand that their online behavior both reflects and shapes their psychological defenses, they gain real agency. Self-awareness is not just a research construct; it is a life skill. And this research is one contribution towards ensuring that Generation Z has access to it. Thank you.